What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about why I am getting Alan Wake 2. This is a preview-like series I do for upcoming games where I talk about whether I'm getting it, not getting it, or I'm somewhere in between. And if you've been watching this channel for at least a month or two, you've probably heard me say that in this fall, you got the titans like Starfield. I mean, obviously that's past, but you had Starfield. You had Baldur's Gate, which was obviously a massive, massive thing. You have Spider-Man. Maybe some people have heard of that. Out of all of these games, Alan Wake 2 is my most anticipated game. And even going into this year, I probably would say Alan Wake was either one, maybe two of my most anticipated games of the entire year. We're finally here. The game is, a little bit less than a month away at this point, at least when I'm recording and when you guys are watching it. And I cannot freaking wait. I really do believe this is a Game of the Year contender. We've talked about that. I've made videos about that. And every time we've seen this game, it looks better. It looks original. It looks different. And actually, I'm recording this, I believe, the day the previews went live. All the people, the creators and press that got to see it. All the different impressions that are out on YouTube and on Twitter. And I mean, it continues to just take it to a new level. You constantly see things like there is no other game that's quite like this, whether it's this fall or whether it's like this entire year. A AAA game, but it's not like any other AAA game that's out there. Obviously, blending live action with just gameplay and obviously, cinematics, but also just being so completely kind of odd, right? With being able to go into their minds with like the investigation board and piece things together. And, in the previews, we're seeing things where Alan Wake can basically just tell stories on the fly. You can say an event happened in a certain room and things will just start to happen, but that might not actually be the right thing in terms of the story. It is nuts. It's absolutely nuts. And that's just like the oddball kind of things, right? Visually, this game actually has been talked about just recently as one of the most impressive looking next-gen games. I think anybody with, eyes can see this game does look very, very impressive. And you think of Remedy in general with Max Payne. You can think of, obviously, Control. The first Alan Wake, I don't think the first Alan Wake ever, wowed people with the visuals, but these guys have always been pretty darn good in terms of just visuals in general. So this game looks absolutely fantastic from a look perspective. Obviously, sound design, and that's pretty important, right, for a horror game. Speaking of which, being a horror game, right, and truly going into it. So, this is something that was brought up with the previews, but I'll say it as well. You think of the first Alan Wake game, I think the thing that most people like about that game was the storytelling, was the characters, was all that jazz, right? I don't know how many people were excited or right now talking about how great the gameplay was, because honestly, the gameplay was not very great in the first game. Seems like, well, number one, the strengths of Alan Wake are still the strengths, so the storytelling, the characters, again, it being just so kind of wacky, but also original. Now, I do think it can actually get a little too convoluted. I think Sam Lake has that thing about him, but I honestly very much respect it. This game gives me a very, almost Kingdom Hearts vibe, but without Tetsuya Nomura. It's almost a polar opposite, where it's almost so convoluted that it becomes unrecognizable or unreachable that you can't actually, keep everything, in front of you and figure it all out. But it's, right there, right towing that line where you can, figure things out, and there are these theories, and a lot of them make sense. It reminds me actually quite a bit about Kingdom Hearts, and maybe that's why it draws me into it. But then on the flip side, the gameplay looks really good too. Visually, it can help as well, but obviously just how the basic fundamentals work, shining the flashlight at enemies, and the gunplay, and even some of the mechanics that they added, right, with being able to strip away their skin and stuff. Those are cool little details, but it just looks more fun to play. There's less fighting in general as opposed to the first game, where you'd have waves and waves and waves, or you'd be trying to get from point A to point B and you'd be interrupted several times from groups of enemies. A lot of that is just completely gone. So I think they've stripped away basically the weaknesses, or at least the weaker elements of the first game, and they've replaced it with the strengths, or they've actually changed it kind of outright. Let's go more into just horror in general. Let's make this game just more scary. In order to do that, you can't have 500 enemies. You have to have 5 or 6, and they might be more intimidating. They might be harder to kill. They'll be more scary, right? And they're going to be more spaced out than they were before. And we've seen plenty of evidence of this, whether it's as Saga or whether it's as Alan. And both of them do seem pretty darn different. I'm very excited. I'm excited to go back into this universe. I'm excited for the Dark Place, all of the gameplay we've seen. I'll be honest, like Alan, I mean, it's called Alan Wake, so specifically I'm excited to play as Alan Wake, and I think his sections definitely look cooler. His voice is so, to me, iconic. I can think of his voice kind of narrating the scenes right from the first game, and there's already been kind of some snippets of the second game as well where he's kind of talking over himself, so I absolutely love all of that. I'm excited to play as Saga as well, but really, Alan Wake's where it's at least for me. I really believe it, guys. I've been saying it for a long time. I think this is a Game of the Year contender. I think it's really kind of wacky, and I think, again, the investigation stuff might be too out there for some people, or, the story. What I'm really interested in, at least from a story perspective, is, how the common thing is they say, well, you don't have to have played anything else, right? You can play this and be totally cool. Is that true? Is that actually true? Because this is a very much connected universe with Control and and even obviously the first Alan Wake, and really just Alan Wake, connecting it from 1 to 2 is more than enough. Again, Alan Wake, American Nightmare, these are pretty deep games with, again, kind of like somewhat convoluted storylines that kind of get messy, and I don't think everybody can, and I can barely even follow it as well. I don't know how many people are going to be able to keep up, so that's something just kind of as like, I don't know, not even an outside, I can't really call myself an outsider, but I'm really interested in that kind of for everybody, where it's like, can you jump into this game, be told the story, and be completely fine, or are you going to be really thrown off when they mention Thomas Zane or Mr. Scratch, or, or even like an Alex Casey or Saga Anderson, which has ties, right? Like, is that stuff going to get confusing? We'll see. But I am so freaking excited to play this game. Obviously comes out October 27th, and I hope I beat Spider-Man by then, because I gotta be real, there's only one game that I would ever put Spider-Man 2 down for, at least in the fall. I'm sure there's other games I probably would put Spider-Man down for, but the only game this fall that I would stop Spider-Man to play something else is actually Alan Wake. Comes out 7 days after. I think I'll have it beaten for sure, but I won't, probably I wouldn't have platinum Spider-Man at that point. I'm gonna have to put it down, play Alan Wake, beat that, then I'll go back to Spider-Man, and maybe I'll try to platinum both of them simultaneously. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Are you excited for this game? Are you getting it? Let me know. Make sure, as always, you guys are subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.